Hello everyone, I'm Jayshree. Welcome to my channel and to this tutorial for another crochet casual top. So this pattern is a top down pattern. We'll begin at the neckline, working down the yoke, and then towards the body of the top. We'll complete it down at the body depending on the length that you're looking for, and then we'll edge the sleeves and the neckline. So here we go with another easy pattern, and by that I mean if you can crochet a beanie or a scarf, then you can definitely do something like this. And the yarn, or should I say the thread, I'll be using. And if you're thinking, oh no, not thread, not something so difficult and tedious, but I'll make it easy by doubling up on the thread. So anyway, the thread that I'm using is this L crochet, and it's crochet number 5, and it's 100% acrylic, a 50-gram skein or ball, and the recommended hook is a 2mm hook. Now because I'm doubling up on this thread, I'll change that hook. I'll use a 3mm hook, and just by doubling up on thread, it actually makes it very easy to work with. So at any given time for this pattern, I'll be using a thread from this skein or ball and the one from this skein or ball as well. So I'll use it together. Yes, that makes it really easy to work with. I'd also like to know from you guys, is this available to you? I mean, I'd like the majority of my viewers to be able to get something like this, because I don't really know what's out there. So that would be nice, just to know that if I can go on using this thread for more patterns, because I do enjoy the wearability of, or the way it feels. It's light, it's nice for summer, and yeah, so I'd like to know that. So to all my subscribers, a big thank you, and to anyone that's new here, well, what I do is I'm just putting patterns out there for you to hopefully enjoy. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do consider subscribing for more patterns and tutorials. Yeah, I hope that you enjoy this tutorial. Let's begin. So I'm working with my thread that's been doubled. So that basically means that I'll be working with 2 balls of yarn or skeins of yarn, or should I say thread, at a time. So with my thread, I'll form a slip knot using my 3mm hook, chain 140. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Continue to 140 chains. I now have 140 chains. So at this point, I'll join the chain that's attached to the hook to the first chain, and when doing so, make certain that this entire chain is not tangled or twisted. Join with a slip stitch. Round 1, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 4 counts as a triple crochet, and here we'll be working triple crochets into all chains. So to work a triple crochet, it's yarn over twice, insert the hook into the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. And you'll continue with triple crochets into all chains to the end of the round. So as I'm working round 1 and working those stitches, at the same time I'm counting my stitches, and I'll be placing 4 stitch markers into my stitches for round 1. And where those stitch markers need to be placed, I will provide it in the next clip. As you see here, I've worked 20 stitches and I've placed my stitch marker into the 20th stitch, and then I'll work further on and my next stitch marker will go into the 50th stitch. So when I get to the 50th stitch, I'll place my next stitch marker, and so on until I have 4 stitch markers marking off my yoke. And those stitch markers marks off the 4 corners of the yoke, dividing the yoke into the front body, back body, and sleeves or armhole spaces. I'm at the end of round 1, having worked all those triple crochets across. So here into the 4th chain, from chain 4, I'll slip stitch to join. Round 2, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 4 counts as 1 double crochet and chain 1 and turn. So here I'll skip the next stitch, and into the next one I'll work a double crochet. To work a double crochet, it's yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, go through 2 loops on the hook. Then it's chain 1, skip 1 stitch and double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip a stitch, double crochet into the next stitch, and you'll continue with the stitch pattern to the 1st stitch marker. I've worked my way and I'm at stitch marker 1. So I've double crocheted, then I'll continue with the pattern, chain 1, double crochet, skip 1, double crochet into the next stitch. And you'll see my next stitch is the one marked by stitch marker 1. So here I'll chain 1, and into that stitch marked by stitch marker 1, I'll work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all into that same stitch. I'll move my stitch marker, placing it into the chain 1 space. Then, like I've done on this side before this first corner, where I work the double crochet directly before the corner, I'll chain 1 on this side, and I'll work my double crochet directly after this corner. So our 4 chain 1 spaces marked by the stitch markers become our 4 corners, and that's how it would look. Then you'll continue with chain 1, skip 1 stitch, double crochet into the next stitch to stitch marker 2. I've continued on and I'm at stitch marker 2. I've worked my last stitch into that stitch right by the one that's marked by stitch marker 2. I've also chained 1. So into that stitch marked by stitch marker 2, I'll work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet all into the one stitch. I'll move my stitch marker into the chain one space that I've just worked. Now you see I've worked my double crochet before the corner into that stitch right before my corner. So on this side I'll chain one and work my double crochet into the stitch right after that corner. Then it's continue with the pattern with chain one, skip one, double crochet to stitch marker 3. I've continued on and I'm at stitch marker 3. So here I've worked a double crochet and I've worked a chain one and I'm at that stitch marked by stitch marker 3. So into that stitch I'll work a double crochet, chain one, double crochet all into that stitch. I'll move my stitch marker and I'll place it into this chain one space. Then it's chain one, and like I've done on the other side where I worked my double crochet directly next to my corner, I'll work the double crochet into that next stitch directly after the corner. Then I'll continue on with my stitch pattern, which is chain one, skip one, double crochet into the next stitch. I'll continue to my 4th stitch marker. I've worked my pattern sequence and I'm at the 4th stitch marker. So I've worked the last double crochet, then it's chain one and I'm at the stitch marker. Into that stitch marked by the stitch marker, I'll work a double crochet, chain one, double crochet all into that same stitch, and I'll place my stitch marker or move my stitch marker into the chain one space. Now like how I've done on this side where my double crochet is directly after this corner, I'll chain one and work a double crochet into the next stitch directly after the corner. Then I'll continue with the pattern with the chain one, skip one, double crochet to the end of the round. I'm at the end of round 2 with 1 stitch to go. So I've worked my double crochet, I'll chain one and I'll join into the 3rd chain from chain 4. I'll slip stitch to join. Round 3, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Chain 4 counts as a triple crochet and turn. So here we're working triple crochets into all chain one spaces and triple crochets into all stitches. So that's the double crochets from the round before, and you continue to the 1st stitch marker. I've worked my way to stitch marker 1. So then I've worked my triple crochet into the chain one space. I'll work a triple crochet into the stitch just before the chain one space marked by my stitch marker. Into that chain one space, I'll work a triple crochet, chain one, triple crochet, all into that chain one space. I'll also replace that stitch marker into the chain one space that I've just worked. and then it's a triple crochet into that triple crochet just after the chain 1 space, and I'll continue with my pattern working triple crochets into the chain 1 spaces and triple crochets into all stitches to stitch marker 2. I'm at stitch marker 2 and I've triple crochet all across. So into the chain 1 space marked by stitch marker 2, I'll work a triple crochet, chain 1, triple crochet all into that space, and I'll replace my stitch marker into the chain 1 space that I've just worked. Then it's continue with triple crochets into all stitches and chain 1 spaces to stitch marker 3. I'm now at stitch marker 3 and I've worked those triple crochets all across. So here I'm right at this chain 1 space. Into the chain 1 space, I'll work a triple crochet, chain 1, triple crochet all into that space, and I'll replace my stitch marker into this chain 1 space that I've just worked. So then it's continue with triple crochets into all stitches and chain 1 spaces to the 4th stitch marker. I'm at stitch marker 4 and I've worked those triple crochets. So here again I'll triple crochet into that chain space, triple crochet into the triple crochet just before the stitch marker, and into that chain space I'll work a triple crochet, chain 1, triple crochet, and I'll replace my stitch marker into that chain 1 space. So again I'll continue with triple crochets into all stitches and triple crochets into all chain spaces. I'm at the end of round 3 and I've worked those triple crochets all across. So to complete the round, it's into the 4th stitch from chain 4, slip stitch to join. So I've continued on completing the yoke. I've repeated round 2 and round 3, and the armhole depth measures 19 centimeters or 7.5 inches, and that's the armhole depth for the size I'm making, which is a medium. I will provide a clip showing armhole depths for the other sizes. If you choose not to go with those measurements, which I've gotten from Craft Yarn Council's website, you could fit on the yoke and make certain that it ends in line with the underarm, and then you'd know your yoke is complete. We'll now continue on with the body. I've chained 4 and worked triple crochets all across to that first stitch marker. So I'll work a triple crochet into that chain space marked by the stitch marker. And then it's chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and I'll join to stitch marker 2 on the other side, skipping the stitches in between. I'll join into that space marked by the stitch marker with a triple crochet. Continue with triple crochets into all stitches and into all chain spaces to the to stitch marker 3. I've worked my way to the 3rd stitch marker. I'll work a triple crochet into that stitch marked by the 3rd stitch marker. Then it's a chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and join to the 4th stitch marker or chain space marked by the 4th stitch marker, skipping all the stitches in between, and I'll work a triple crochet into that space marked by the 4th stitch marker. Then I'll work triple crochets to the end of the round. I've completed round 1, working triple crochets to the end, and I've slip stitched into the 4th chain from chain 4 to join. I've continued on with the body, and all I've done is repeated round 2 and round 3 until I reached just under the bust. So the pattern is the same as it was for the yoke, except that there are no corners. So you'll just continue to follow this pattern sequence without triple crochets, and then the next round will be double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet until you reach, once fitted, your top reaches just below the bust. Okay, so for my last round, you need to make certain that your stitch count is in multiples of 4 in order to work the patterned part of the body. And to do that, what you can do is, before you get to your last round, count the number of stitches you have. Like in the round that you work the double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, count the number of stitches you have. So you'll count the double crochet and you'll count the chain 1 as a stitch. So that will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then depending on the number of stitches you have there, you'll need to increase in the next round, which would be your last round for the body, before starting the patterned part of the body. You'll need to increase to make certain that the stitch count is in multiples of 4. So we'll now continue on with the second part of the body, which is the patterned part of the body, and I'll call this round 1 of the patterned part of the body. So we'll be working puff stitches, and to work a puff stitch, that first stitch, you'll elongate the yarn to about 1 centimeter, and then it's yarn over, insert your hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop and elongate the next loop to the same length as the first. Yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, elongate the loop, yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop and elongate the loop. Then it's yarn over, and to complete the puff stitch, it's chain 1. then it's chain 2, 1, 2, and into that same stitch we'll work another puff stitch. So it's yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop and elongate the loop to about 1 centimeter. Yarn over, insert the hook into the stitch, pull up a loop, elongate the loop, yarn over, insert the hook into that same stitch, pull up a loop, elongate the loop, yarn over, insert the hook into the same stitch, pull up a loop and elongate the loop. And I've done that 4 times. And then it's yarn over and pull through all the loops on the hook and then chain 1 to secure the stitch. Then it's skip the next 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and into that next stitch you'll work a puff stitch. Chain 2 and a puff stitch all into that 1 stitch. So that's the pattern for round 1, where it's skip 3 stitches into the next stitch, work a puff stitch, chain 2, puff stitch, and you'll continue to the end of the round. I've come to the end of round 1, having worked my last stitch pattern with 3 stitches remaining. So to end the round, into that stitch right above that first puff stitch we've worked, we'll slip stitch. Round 2, slip stitch in between the first 2 puff stitches. And here it's a repeat of round 1, where we'll work a puff stitch, chain 2, puff stitch into this chain 2 space from the round before, and into the next chain 2 space we'll work a puff stitch, chain 2, puff stitch, and we'll do that into all the chain 2 spaces from the round before. So you'll continue to the end of the round. I've continued on with the patterned part of the body, and I've worked it to the length that I wanted. So all you'll do is continue to repeat round 2 until you get it to the length that you like it at. Then you'd fasten off and cut off that excess yarn, and we'll now move on to the edging off around the sleeve or the armhole space. Now I've already done that, and again here we're just repeating the pattern. So what I've done, if you look on the other side, I stopped at a round of double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. So in order to continue with the pattern, I needed to work a round of triple crochets. So you'll attach your yarn to the underarm of the armhole space and you work your round of triple crochets. Again, make certain that the number of stitches you have is in multiples of 4. And then for my next round, it was the repeat of round 1 from the patterned part of the body. And yeah, that was just to edge the sleeve and edge the neckline as well. Well, for the neckline, you don't really need to work the triple crochets. You already have them. Just make certain that they are in multiples of 4. If not, you could work a round of single crochets above that to bring it to a multiple of 4, and then work your edging.